So this is really exciting.
I know. You got your tea. I got my soup. Let's have a good chat.
Okay, I'm just going to say it's 9 p.m. I put on a wig.
Me too.
I got dressed. And I'm on here with a cup of tea. If anybody else is with us,
right.
That's great.
I hope that the people who are watching are not wearing wigs. You do not need to be wearing a wig. I recorded some podcast episodes this morning. You were one of them. I'm so excited for that one to go live. It'll be in a couple of weeks. And so I had a wig on for that. And then I had it off the whole day while I was working from home. And now back on for this. So I feel like that's a good way to track your days nowadays. Like when did you have a wig on?
Right. It's very interesting that you're saying that because I have a lot of Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And I insist on getting dressed for them all. This is just kind of a status piece for me. Okay. Right. So we're going to talk about journaling here. Actually, I just want to say this just as a intro for a second. It was a decision that I came to last week was that we had to cancel a lot of our events at Links and stuff like that. And I wanted to figure out a different way that we could be supportive in this time. And what I realized is that Instagram Lives is my way to go. It's my comfort zone right now. And it's something simple that we can all do from home. So I hope that it'll be beneficial to the people watching here. And you can also tell your friends that hopefully we will save each live. We upload them to our YouTube channel as well, so that people who either aren't on Instagram or aren't available during these 24 hours, hopefully should be able to watch it. We have a really kind soul who screen records each one. So it's really nice. So today I wanted to actually talk about journaling and what triggered that conversation and the reason I brought you on, and I'll talk about that in a second. We sent out something called the pre-Pesach principles, and they were amazing. It's really a lot of pragmatic advice, first on the emotional end of things, and then part 2 that's going out this week. I know I promised last week, but it just was a Zoom.
It happens.
Right? Corona happens.
It happens.
It's going to be much more on the pragmatic and resources and cooking and cleaning help and stuff like that. But one of the things that we stuck in were 21 journal prompts. And journaling has been something that's really helpful to me, although knowing my track record with consistency, we'll talk about that, why that doesn't last for me much. And then Rivky reached out and said, oh, that's so cool that I see you're talking about that. I journal and whatever. That was just like a really good opening for us to have this conversation. So the way this particular live is going to go down is that we're going to schmooze for about, I'd say 25 minutes or so, a little bit about Rivky's journey in journaling. And yeah, I know that alliteration is like, whatever.
Good.
Okay,
I like it.
And then Rivky's going to hop off and I'm going to talk more about the grief particulars of grief journals. But now for you, Rivky. So I'm just out of curiosity, how often do you journal?
So I journal, I would say, as needed. It really depends on what's going on in my life. I'll generally journal whenever my brain gets too crowded. So it depends how you want to like define journaling. I write notes every single day. So things like to-do lists.
Are those right? I was going to say those are like more notes like of stuff to do, but not feeling stuff.
Both. Well, also I spend a lot of my time feeling and thinking about my business, and I do a lot of, I think of them as brain dumps. Or if I'm not writing it down, if I'm saying it to someone, I say that I verbally vomit at you. And I just say everything that's on my brain. My wonderful husband is the recipient of all of those. And what that is just completely unloading everything that's going on in my brain. When do I journal about, feelings? Whenever I have lots of feelings. So recently it's been about some anxieties with the whole Corona thing. And that'll make stuff pop up more for me. And, when I was dating, I journaled a lot because there's a lot of information that you're getting all at once. And it all seems really important. And I had this feeling after I came back from every date where it was like, I feel like either I'm going to marry this guy and then I want to know all of the details. I want to remember everything that we did together. I want to know what salad I ordered on the third date. Like all of that's going to be really important. Spoiler alert, it's not. But like that felt really important at the time. Or it was, if I'm making a decision in weeks or months from now, do I want to marry this man? Then I want to have all the information that I can. Funnily enough, the first guy that I dated that I didn't like journal really intensely was my husband. Because I do think that
Go figure.
I know, right? I did kind of realize that by taking the things that you journal become important because you're spending time thinking through them. You're taking the time to record them. So that means that you can lend importance to things that might not really be that important. And things can kind of get blown up in your brain that way. And what I realized was the person who I dated before my husband turned out whatever. It ended and it was a situation, let's just put it that way. And what I realized after that relationship ended was I had given importance to a lot of things. I had given things that he had said or done, I had given them I had overthunk them to death. And also I had given them this stature that they didn't really deserve. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it, I'm not going to think about it so hard. I'm not going to do, I'm not going to sit in it so much. And then whatever, I married my husband not because I didn't journal. I married my husband because he's awesome. But
you're bringing up something really important, is that basically two pieces, if I could. One was, I want to go back to that like verbal vomiting thing, because I think that's really important, of just like putting our words out there makes us less likely to probably throw them onto some, innocent individual in our lives. That's one huge benefit for me personally. But the other piece here that I'm hearing from you is actually something that is the flip side, like the con of journaling, which people often say is like, I had a teacher in high school who said to us, you know why I hate journals? Things that you forgot about and you would have forgotten about, incidents, become so real and vivid because we go back and we read those journals and we're like, oh my God, how did I get over that hurt? Right. And I didn't like her for saying it then, but she wasn't wrong. She really wasn't wrong. There are so many times that I do look back. I have journals of some pretty tough times in my life,
I'm sure.
And there's a part of me that knows that I need to work through soon shredding those.
Right.
Because that's going to be a piece of my letting go of those hurts.
Right.
And I think that I can't say I'm upset for journaling it, because first of all, they proved to me just how difficult things were and how much I've grown since, which is nice. At the same time, whenever I read it, there's a certain anger or residual anger that I may have let go of, but it's still there because I can go back and peek at those pages.
Well, yeah, you're being reminded of the thing that happened. You're being right. Reminded of the thing that you were angry about. And listen, I've gotten through a lot of hard times also, and and those are things that, when people bring them up, I still don't like to talk about them. Right. The fact that you're past something means, you like to be past it, and let's leave that box firmly closed over there on the other side of the room, please, and thank you. So because of that, it makes it a lot easier to, I hear it both ways. There is something to be said for seeing how far you've come. And there is, I do think that there's something to learn from every situation. So having the situation recorded to refer back to is really helpful.
Right. I think there was a line here, and I just want to say hi to all the amazing people who have joined us. Like, the names were flying so fast that I couldn't say hi to anybody personally, but really thank you to all of you who are here. So Dr. Cosmo just threw out a line. She says, but that's why I love them. It gives us insight into what that was like. And you know what? Sometimes we rewrite history in our heads, and I have a tendency to rewrite history in a more positive form. I'll be like, nah, it wasn't so bad. Like, you're imagining that.
Oh, so what I do is that I am the superhero of all of my memories. If I would be like, right, and then I did this wonderful, amazing thing, and the world was better. That's what I do. But like Dr. Kozlowitz said, there's a value in being able to refer back to it. But I think that that's something that you get with a lot of time.
There's a risk benefit to anything we're going to do. Right. And if we're going to be real here about journaling has its risks. It absolutely has its risks. And one of the
100%.
things that I was going to say is that when you go with a journal that has prompts, right, you're taking
Right.
that risk just one step further. You're
Right.
asking yourself questions that not necessarily would you have thought of before. And you may be with that opening a Pandora's box that is not really ready to be opened,
Right.
or that maybe a little scary to open because somebody else who wrote that journal thought this was a cool prompt to put out, but it's not necessarily the prompt that you need to see
Right.
on this Sunday morning. Like,
right.
that's just,
I've never
you
used
know,
a journal with prompts, actually.
You what? I'm sorry?
I've never used a journal with prompts. I didn't, for me, the way that my brain just gets crowded. So I always thought of journaling as a way to clear out the clutter in my head. And if there's something that was living, because also when things live in your brain, they tend to just bounce around and like get crazier and crazier. You know those bouncy balls that when they hit the wall and then they come back to you, they come back even faster, and then they hit another wall and then they move even faster, and then your brain is moving at
Your brain and
1,500.
my brain are cousins.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then you end up moving at 15 miles a minute, and you don't know where to turn, and everything just gets very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. That's when I journal. So for me, I never really need a prompt and a lot of times I'll just start with a feeling.
Right.
I feel scared because.
Okay, that's really, one second, guys, take note of that. That's a really good idea, actually, to just start with a feeling of I feel. Open-ended. Yeah. What do I feel?
Right. Right now, I feel scared because, and then just going. Because a lot of times when your brain is moving like that so quickly, mm-hmm. I find that for myself, and again, I'm not any kind of like certified psychological anything, but for me, I find that when thoughts are moving that quickly and when feelings are moving that quickly, it's really hard to identify how you feel because you're just running at 10 miles a minute. Like you're just running and running and running. And to take the moment and say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Am I scared? Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? Am I any of those? Am I hungry? Guys, eat a snack. That will solve 10% of your problems, I promise. But all of those things can, that just helps me to identify I am tired because I haven't slept in a week. I've been working until 2:00 in the morning, getting a new collection out. I've been worried about X, Y, and Z happening. All of those things are, it's a lot. And just being able to identify the feeling is like, okay, I feel tired. What's the answer? Go take a nap. Okay, I can do that. Let's go do that. And then you can deal with that situation in a productive way.
No, that's really important because kind of what it does is like it organizes the clutter in our brain. And when it's not so cluttered and we have like this, kind of these little drawers for different things, you can put it in the drawer and keep it safe in there. And then I'll look at that a different time. So I want to just take that and say, back to the journaling prompts versus journaling on our own. Here's what I find what's interesting is that there are times that I'm stuck. Like, I don't know if this ever happens to you. Like, I want to dump. I so want to dump. But maybe I've let it go too far to the point where I'm so cluttered in my brain that it's even overwhelming to dump.
So that's when I verbally vomit. For me, like that's when it's like I don't have the patience to write this all out. So this is when I will go to another person, usually my husband. It used to be my mom, or I'll do it on a recording. Like my iPhone has voice memos, and I will literally turn on the recording and just talk. And that
I feel like that's a genius hack.
You're welcome. And that is also helpful because I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just like the really good student in me, but there's like a certain order to how you write something. And like we said, there's something very concrete about writing it down. And words are very ethereal. They're not quite as permanent. So even when you're recording it, there's something to be said for, let's just dump it out. And I'll either do it to another person where they can where they can either remember what I'm saying or just, push back on what I'm saying and thinking, I'm really nervous because the world is going to end. Well, it's probably not. So maybe let's talk about that, or.
And you know what's really nice about journaling? The paper believes you that the world is going to end.
That's true.
And
there's something very nice about that.
You need that.
Right. That's right. That's very true.
Sometimes you're like, sure. I don't need anyone to tell me the world isn't ending right now. It's ending for me. right
Right,
now.
exactly.
Right.
100%. 100%. So yeah, and that's something also that makes a difference, where if I'm too overwhelmed to write, then I just talk. Now, talking is something that I'm very good at, as you can see. I do it all the time. But for me, it's like that helps also, to just get it out, and just to, even if I think, okay, there's 17 things in my brain, write down 5 of them. Just remove some of the bouncing balls so that you can focus on anything else. Focus on the contents as opposed to just the mess of everything.
That's really good. I feel like I'm getting so much wisdom. I'm gonna rewatch this live, and I actually will like probably take notes.
Sucks.
One of the things that, you know, that's interesting for me as somebody who's been journaling also for years on and off, of like, I hate the consistency. Like, I could never buy one of these journals like 30-day fill in every day. Probably anything that said I should do it every day.
Not my jam.
So I generally, part of the reason that I do so well with secretaries in my office is because I give over like things to finish them. And if I have ever any medication that I need to take for 10 days, it's like almost a sick thing in my house, where my husband and my kids will know to ask me after 3 days of my feeling better. I have forgotten that I have a prescription at all, right? So for me, like any of these 30-day, 20-day things generally don't work. I know that's not true for a lot of other people. I know that I've had links girls who've told me that like 365, day journal type of thing have really saved them, because oftentimes you see, for those of us who are just like dumpers, so it's just like, okay, I can dump on Wednesday and I'll dump again next month, and then 3 months may go by and then I'll do it 3 days in a row, right?
Right.
For other people, it's like they need a structure to be able to like kind of have that safe space where I can dump, almost much like a weekly therapy appointment in a strange way, of like, this is my appointment with my journal, where I get like this safe space to kind of explode a little bit. Now, just to be fair, I don't know about you, but I've journaled some really happy stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Like, sure. I don't think journals, I think people have this like idea that journals need to be about like scary stuff or like sad stuff or drama. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I do think that I tend to journal the drama more than the happy stuff.
We tend to give attention more to negative in general.
That's true too. But I also think that that's because I think that the bad things overwhelm me more. When something is happy, that's an easy feeling to feel. Happy. I got that one down. Happy, content, excited. Those are all things that I have down. Nervous, anxious, tired, not as much. So those are generally the kinds of things that will overwhelm me, and that I will then feel the need to journal. A lot of times also, sometimes I'll just journal something that feels really important. Sometimes I will, I'll say this. Okay. My grandfather Shloshim is coming up on Sunday. And he had brain cancer for 14 months before he died. And that year was very stressful. And there was a lot of things that were very stressful about that year. And I definitely journaled more over the past year, and just things that seemed monumental, even if we had a doctor's appointment today, it went great. The MRI came back and tumors are shrinking. Those kinds of things I wrote down, and I took and I just wanted to note them. It was also, I'm really scared today. He got diagnosed. All of those things also happened. And that was something that I think I did more over the past year than I probably have in the past, like, I want to say maybe 2 years. Prior to that, just because things were going great and I didn't really need it. And that also makes a big difference. To me, it's about the enormity of the occasion. And I don't know, bad things just tend to be bigger, right?
I think bad things overwhelm us, like you said, and the combination of that and the fact that they are just in our brain space, they take up that clutter that we kind of want to just see out, so I can kind of see the rest of what's going on in life. I just think that we should raise the fact that it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It can, of course, be things that are happy. If that works for you, then that's certainly what you should be doing. I
Right.
wanted to just out of curiosity, technique. Do you use pen and paper or do you type?
No, digital all the way. I use the Notes app on my phone.
Really? So it's
Yep.
interesting. The Notes app, I don't know why I find it hard on my phone. I generally, when I end up journaling, it's one of two things. Either I will go hardcore pen and paper, like
Okay.
those journals that I talk about that I have to go back and reread are like 10 years old. Those are for sure pen and paper.
Right.
But I've had like where I've just taken a note and I can be in a restaurant, then I've taken the back of a receipt and journaled on that. But the probably my longest, most intense, like inner journal kind of thing, definitely typed. I use Google Docs because I'm Google Docs' best friend. Somebody said I found an interesting way of journaling, and that is by writing letters to my kids.
That's very interesting.
I'm curious
like
if you
that.
could share. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm curious if you would share, like, how would you do that with a negative experience? Like,
I'm also curious if you intend to share the letters with your kids, or if it's just something that you keep for yourself.
Them. As someone who has cleaned out her parents' home, I'll just say that I'm glad I didn't find some of the things that my friends have told me they have found. Where you're like,
I don't want to know.
If you intended for me never to see them, burn them. Because I will find them, right? And I can tell you that
I will take your word for that.
Yes.
Yeah, going back to the digital versus pen and paper. I go digital for two reasons. If it is a piece of paper, I will lose it. I know this about myself. Everything that my business needs to run, everything that my life needs to run, it is all digital because I can keep track of one thing, and that is my phone. And that is it. So if it's a piece of paper, it's just going to get lost.
Where's my husband listening to this live? I hope he is, because I lose every paper.
Yeah.
Known to mankind. Go.
Yeah, my shopping list, everything, it's all digital.
It's not just me. Go.
Yeah. So the reason why I use the Notes app is because I do have a Mac laptop. So the Notes app on my phone, they talk to each other. They're all synced up and things. So I do something on my phone and it's on my computer, and then I do it on my computer and it's on my phone. So basically my life is in the Notes app. And I just have a little tab, personal, and that's exactly what it is. It's personal. And that's
okay, so I'm gonna just segue from that. Do you ever share what you write with anybody?
I definitely have. I definitely have in the past. I don't think, like, I wouldn't be mortified if someone found my journals. The point of them is not for other people to see them, though. You know, like, if there's something, let's say I wanted to, like, tell my husband something. Some people, if I wanted to tell my husband something, I would just tell him. And we would have a conversation, and we would take it from there. I think that a part of the reason why I don't like show them to people is because that's not the point. The point is just to empty my brain out. The point is for me to think through feelings. There have definitely been one or two times when, like we said, it's recording something. So if I wanted to tell someone about an event that happened, then I will refer back and say, you know, this is what I wrote at the time when it happened. But yeah, I don't think that I would be totally mortified. Listen, I'm not looking to publish them, but it's, you know, it's not, I actually found, I kept a diary when I was, I don't know, probably like 10, 12, really good diary keeping age. It had a lock and it was heart shaped and it had a key, the whole 9 yards. And I found it a couple years ago and I was reading through it and I was like, wow, this girl took everything so seriously, like reading through it, whatever. And at the time, had anyone seen it, I would have been mortified. But then I took that same journal and I showed it to everyone because I was like, look at how adorable I was.
So
like,
my kids, I just showed them. I found the diary of what I wrote when I went to Israel when I was in 5th grade. And like everything is documented, but everything, which was beautiful for them to read, and that was fine. I think my current journals probably should not be seen by most of society. That's fine. It's the stuff that you're not supposed to say out loud about certain things, right? Okay. So sometimes I'll have that. It's really frustrating to me, something where I need to be politically correct publicly about something. But inwardly, I am like exploding from the the incongruence of it all.
Right.
And I'll be like, bam! I come home from a meeting and I'll be like, ugh, I'm going to get this somewhere, but nobody should see this because this can't be my opinion publicly.
Right.
So that's one part of my journal. So I probably would have a problem with certain things. But then what I've also found interesting is that sometimes I've journaled, and I don't know if this ever happened to you, but as I'm journaling it, it suddenly becomes important for me to share it with someone. Like all of a sudden, as I'm writing it, I'm realizing it's important for me. And I'm like, okay, so this person, whoever it is, right? It can sometimes be my husband. It can sometimes be someone else. And I'll be like, wow, this needs to be shared. I've even actually published some things this way. Is that sometimes after I write it out, I like step back for a second. I'm like, wow, this actually needs to be seen by the world in a different capacity. Wow. And I've like turned it into an article and submitted it and had it published.
I think your journals are a lot more esoteric than mine. Like mine are usually, I'm stressed. Let's try to figure out why. That's usually what mine are.
So no. I have those.
Right.
And I have those.
Right.
Here are this.
It depends on the
Sometimes
day, right?
my journal goes 3 lines and it goes, I am furious. I am angry. I will never get over this. And that's from somebody who's as easygoing as ever. And there are moments, right? Somebody just wrote, Belle Blue, she says, I actually don't journal because I wouldn't want anybody to see it. And I
totally get that.
There is so much fear sometimes that I have after I write something. I'm like, I'm telling you, I feel like, okay, burn this. And there are journals actually that have covers. It's like, burn this if you find this kind of thing. Right. So it's interesting though, like with all this talk is that, you know, here we are, we're like putting out the real fears. But the pros, at least for me, usually outweigh the cons where I'm just sitting there and it's like, if I held on to this and I didn't write about it, it would come out somewhere. And that somewhere can sometimes be so much more hurtful than if I can process it. And that's not instead of any other self-care.
Right. No, 100%.
Anything. But it's a safe space sometimes without being hurtful. You know, and I also find that sometimes if I can say it to that person, like I'll be honest, there was a time where I worked for a particular company and I was putting in all the extra hours in this place and everything like that. And somebody else got a really serious promotion in the company. And that person was like, as we all know it, right? Not putting in that 200%. It would not have been in my good interest to speak up at that point to my boss. It just, it wouldn't have worked well. I was staying with the company. I was going to have to work with this person in their new position. Just not a good idea. Did I go home and journal about it? You bet I did. It was just a way, it was a release. Somebody wrote, you can write it and tear it up. DBS graphics, you can write it and tear it up just to get it off your heart 100%. Totally. So sometimes it's like, phew, out there. And I do recommend that if it's something that you're really worried that can be harmful to either yourself or somebody else if it's found, then yeah, please do. Rip it up as soon as it's done. Totally. There's also, by the way, if you do this in Microsoft Word, you can password protect a document.
You can also password protect a PDF. And I believe that you could password protect notes.
You could.
Well.
You could.
You can?
You could.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there
I know
you go.
For sure you can
also,
do it
I
on
do
a MacBook,
like
and I believe on my phone there is a way to do it. I'm not so familiar because it hasn't come to that, but I definitely would feel absolutely comfortable doing that.
You definitely could. And that's also part of why I prefer virtual journaling for a couple of reasons. I don't have to worry about the actual, you know, the hard copy getting ruined if God forbid there's a fire or flood or something like that. You know, there's always a backup. And it is easier to protect unless you have people like randomly going through your phone, which I don't think that would necessarily be.
That would probably raise a whole different set of questions.
Yeah. So, if you have that situation, then you probably have other
other stuff on
I'm
your phone
unequipped
that you'd
to
want
help you with.
figure out, and whatever your strategy for that is, use that. So that's very, very interesting. Wow. Anything else you wanted to add? This is so fascinating.
This is so fun.
By the way, I just want to say something. I had one of my staffers actually, I wanted her to come on here, but she's not feeling well. But she was telling me that one of the things that she wanted people to know is, let's say when it came to our prompts, which we'll talk about more, I sent out these grief prompts. She said, Rivkah, tell people they can also draw. She said, journals doesn't have to be limited to writing.
So true.
She goes, sometimes if you want to just explore feelings, you want to just draw it. She says, some people are just artsy like that they prefer to just sketch something out. And and that kind of thing. So that was an important piece, because I think that's a lot, you know, that says a lot. I just also want to say it's interesting. We started this little journal in our house that I found Hanukkah. I was looking for interesting gifts on Amazon, and my son happens to love to write stories, and he loves to write different things. So there was something called the Father-Son Journal, and it's opposite pages writing about the same thing, from a father to a son, a son
That's
to a father.
so
So like,
cool.
yeah, like 3 things I wish I could do with you one day, and it's like your version, and they just share it.
Wow.
It's been an amazing journey. Of course, all my girls wanted it, so thank God we found father-daughter ones also, because my husband can finish something from beginning to end. His wife, less so. So
His
it's
wife.
it's safer for the kids to have this sort of thing. Anything that requires consistency, I said that way. But anyway, so it's been an amazing thing to watch the back and forth in terms of conversation. It's really beautiful. Really, really, really amazing.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
So I want to go into the 21-day prom. Thanks a million for
My
joining
pleasure.
us.
I'm
Thank you, Rivky. We're going to continue on here just in terms of the grief particulars. I'm hanging up on you. So Rivky, thank you so much for joining. That was amazing. And now what I want to do is I want to go into the grief journal. If you didn't get it, you can email. I'll put the email in my stories so that you can email to request your own copy. What we started last Thursday, and really what I wanted to do was 21 days to Pesach. So it started on Thursday, March 19th, but you can catch up. And obviously skip any prompts that don't work for you, you know, stuff like that. The idea of these prompts really in terms of a grief piece is to encourage the kind of ability to explore different pieces of the grief process or yontif process that may be scary or concerning or exciting, but you kind of are not going there. So this is to help you kind of go there. Okay, so let's go through some of these prompts. On March 19th, we had, here's how my parent got me to laugh, and this is how I get myself to laugh. So you would just be able to journal, you know, about that. And somebody said to me, well, my parent never got me to laugh. So let's choose something else that works for you, something on a lighter note. Friday, we had every year, every month, every season, every yontif. It all brings with it different aspects of grief. What is it that you are missing most today? And I'd love if any of you who are on here would like to respond. You can definitely respond and we can engage with each other. So there are all these different kinds of prompts. And the idea of it is that when you have a prompt that allows you to explore what is going on within you, that's huge. Today's prompt, I think today was the 23rd, right? Today, my body is telling me to. And for me, this was like huge. My body right now is not feeling well. It's really telling me, just stay put, drink tea, and stay in bed. And I can't. I fight those things a lot, right? So this was a great journaling piece for me to realize, what is it that my body needs from me now? What does it want from me now? How can I be of best help to myself today? There was another one. I could sum up my parent who passed away in 3 words. You know, this is the best way that I could say it. All these kinds of prompts are allowing us to get into a space that we may say, I don't want to go there, right? And again, as we said in the beginning, these prompts can be, you can journal about them written, you can journal about them in an art form, you can skip any of them, you can be consistent about them or as inconsistent as you want. And that's pretty much the idea of the grief journal. The grief journal is to allow us to go to places within our grief that we don't necessarily often explore. So I'm going to put that email in my stories. I invite you to join us tomorrow night. I think we have our live with Dr. Itzkowitz speaking about different quarantine questions that our Links girls have submitted, hard ones. That's going to be here. Wednesday, we're going to be doing practical Pesach tips. And then next week, we hope to be going live with Miriam from Mika Fashion again, which I know was beloved, absolutely beloved here. And then there are a couple of other surprise guests that I'm working on. And once that all pulls together, I'll share with you the full live schedule. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, if you want to get the journal prompts, just go over to my stories. I'm going to have the email address where you can email to get a copy of those prompts. And really, you know, feel free to share with our community what it is that you would like to write about, or a prompt that spoke to you, or anything of that sort. And if you have any questions about journaling, I'm hanging out here for another couple minutes. So do you want to write anything in the comments in terms of any questions you have either about grief journal or about journaling itself. There are also, by the way, put out by Our House, some excellent, and I'll post those in the stories also, some excellent grief journals for kids. The only thing I would say is that some of them have like issues of cremation or stuff like that that are not so applicable to the Frum community. So you would want to skip certain pages and work well with other pages. But they're really age appropriate grief journals. So have a great night, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us. This was a great group. And thank you for all the wonderful conversation about journaling.